Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is just the dashboard itself and getting used to how the application is laid out and how the navigation is going to work within the application itself. So let's start off kind of going left to right. On the left here, we have a section that kind of denotes the project level navigation. So on this page, we're looking at the project section, and that is highlighted here. As you progress through, you will see that this is going to constantly be updating. So when you select a project, it'll then pull up all the applicable languages for that project. But if I need to go back, I can do so just by going through here, through this navigation pane right here. As you can see, though, that once you go backwards, you cannot go forward unless you use the actual content selection. So this is really designed that way on purpose, just so that way we're making sure that we're always pulling the right information up for you. So if you are going down the navigation, you can then go back up, but it is important to note that you cannot go straight back down to that last page that you were at. So you really need to be progressing through this dashboard using this center pane right here. So next, besides this navigation section, we're going to have this section of prompts that are just kind of outlining what you are supposed to be doing in this section over here, this content section. So for this one, we have a prompt that says select a project. So we have two separate projects. We have the 34 project and we have the 30 project. We're going to be working in the 34 for this demo. So we're going to select that. So now we have two separate languages up right now. So we have Hindi and we have Persian Farsi. So when you select a language, it's going to run against the database to ensure that an instance of the language has been provided. And if not, it's going to prompt you to insert all the instructions for activities within that language. So our demo today is going to be in Hindi. So if I were to select that, I get a tiny notification here that says languages were found, meaning that we have an instance or a module available for us already in the system. But if I were to go back to languages and select Persian Farsi, so it'll pull up all the instructions that are there, but there's no instance of the language itself in the database. So we're just going to keep going down with Hindi. So that kind of handles where you get to the language section. So we're going to go down, then we're going to go to, and you can edit any of these instructions at any time by going here. So since the instructions for each activity are global per language, we've made it so that in the language section, you can edit all the instructions right there and they'll be applied across the board. So that way we won't have to update them on an individual basis or anything like that. So it's just easier to manage that way. So let's go back. So the next screen, you have all of your modules that are available. We have all 6 modules pre-populated for you. So if you have an instance of a module, it'll pull up the information when you select it. So it goes straight to this module information screen, but here we have kind of pre-populated information because this is an instance that I've set up for this demonstration. But if I were to go back and then select a module that is not in the database, oh no, these would be empty, and you'd be able to go through and select and enter in this header information that kind of details the navigation for the module itself. So you would enter in the module title, you would enter in the first ELO title, you would enter in the second ELO title and the third ELO title as well. So let's go back to module 1. Okay, so we're in module 1 right now, so we're going to open this module and start working in it. So we're in the sections part, so each of these fields kind of denotes what we're about to see. So we're going to build the module. Okay, so now we're actually inside the module and we're ready to start developing. So the first thing I want you to notice is that our module title itself has been pre-populated to here, which is going to be consistent throughout all of the pages, which is really a one-to-one of the actual IMI itself. So we have the module title here, we have it also here, and then in this navigation we've kind of mimicked the same structure that is in the IMI. So if we were to open this, and we can see that we have all of the heading sections that we just went over. So we have that ELO1 title, we have the ELO2 title, we have the ELO3 title, etc. So this is all kind of set up for us now. So we have the navigation ready to work. So let's look at the actual navigation itself. So we were looking at having this all set up by title and by section. So in order to view a page within that section, you're going to select it. So right now, when we first fired up the module itself, it opened up and showed that we are in the introduction page, which is asking us to add a video itself. And if I were to go to a different section, or the ELO1, for example, and then open up the reading template for that page, it would also pre-populate to that. So using this navigation pane on the left here, you can flip through all of the templates that are available in the order that they're going to appear in the IMI. So let's go back and start actually populating some data into here. So we're going to start with the introduction video. Right now, there is nothing in the database that is associated with this page, in this module, in this language. So what we need to do is add a video. So we go to here. I'm going to go to where I have these videos available for me to grab. Right now it's set to an image file. And we're going to add that intro video. So we selected that. The next thing that comes up is this section that asks for any attribution information. Now, an important thing to note that within this system, when you are entering in any sort of media, you always have to provide attribution information. We do that on purpose because we want to ensure that we're always citing our sources. So within this, I'm going to put, since this is our video, our video guy, Josh, actually made this for us. So let's put a title in here, introduction video. Source. Usually the source for this would be the URL or the primary URL that you would get it from. So if I were to get this video from Flickr, our source would be www.flickr.com, and then whatever the associated reference is that's on the end of that URL. So that full URL of where you're grabbing that resource, that's where you'd put it here. Since we built this though, and just for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to put Advancia Tech. The author is Josh Bogart. We can use today's date, so we'll say 1/3/2020. Now, usually when you are supplying a date, though, you would want it to be, the date that that video was added to whatever source you're getting it from. And then lastly is going to be the description, and the description is really there to serve as alternative text or a description of what the video is, and that's really for accessibility concerns. So we're going to put, this is a intro video for Korean module. So I'm going to just remove this date real quick. So as you can see, all these fields are required. So if I were to submit this, it's going to tell me, hey, you need to enter a date. So I'm going to put that date back in, and I will properly do it. And it's going to validate in real time. So when it is properly entered, it will notify me on the right here and say, hey, this looks good. So let's submit this. Okay, so now we have the video within here, and now you have the option of being able to play it. So we can play it to check. So we know that we can see the video in here. It's in the template now. So the next step would be that we would submit it. So you're going to click this save button, and it might take a little while to fire up just because we are uploading a video, and usually that takes a little bit. Okay, so now we have a prompt that comes up. So whenever you are submitting something to the database, it'll always give you a message that says, hey, this has been successfully added to the database. That way you know, okay, what I've entered has been stored. So I'm going to hit OK. Yeah, so now we have this in the database. We have it in the template as well. But let's say I found out that I entered the date for this actually incorrectly. So, and I need to edit this actual video itself. So what I can do is when I hover over this, the outline of the video itself becomes blue, and I can select this. And now I have all the proper attribution information right at my disposal to edit. So I can go into here. I can say it was actually not 2020. It was 2019 that this was made. So we can submit that. And now that that's there, I can resubmit to save it. And again, this might take a little bit just because it's a big video. Perfect. So it's been properly added to the database. So another thing to note that's going to happen is that once you've submitted something and you then go to a separate page or a new instance of a page, you're going to migrate from the template. But if I were to go back, it retrieves the information that is associated with this template in the language in the module automatically for you. So we entered that stuff into the database. When I then go back to the page later on, it's automatically populated. I can edit all this information again or resubmit if I have to. So in real time, you can kind of make edits and keep working. And if you need to step away and come back to it, it'll all still be there. So let's go to, I'm going to skip over this objective section. This is a page that is actually going to be built out automatically by filling out the ELO title screens, which I'm about to go over. So we're going to go to this. This is going to be the TLO title screen. So what we're going to have here is the same kind of mechanism for adding media. So we would have, you would select an image. I'm going to select, let's say, we'll use this enrichment image. Why not? So we have this here. I'm going to be asked to enter in all the attribution information again. Let's say TLO title screen. Or, yeah. We have the source, which I guess would be, we could say www.flickr, or we'll just say Flickr just for keeping it short. The author is, I'll just put me for now. And then the date we can say is 1/1 of 2017. And then this description is a lovely picture. All right, submit that. So that's adding the picture in. Again, you can edit it just by clicking on it or selecting it. And then down here, we're going to have our ELO text, which is going to be denoted by, you have the target language that's going to be available, and you're going to have the English version of that as well. So if we were to look in the IMI itself, so here you have the title of which section you're in. This is the TLO, so this isn't really applicable because it would be the same as this. But we have the target language text, which would be here. And then if we were to flip it, we would have that English translation of it as well. So we're going to set that up. I have a document that has all of the text already kind of in it that we are going to be sending to you after this demonstration. So let's go back to the tool. But essentially what you're going to be doing to enter in this data, especially in a different language, would be to copy and paste. That's the easiest way to do it as of right now. So we're going to add that information into here. So now we have all of that information that we need. We can submit it. It's notifying me, hey, this template has been added to the database. Perfect. So let's talk about one more step as well. We have this preview button down here. So you have the save button, which is essentially uploading everything to the database, but you also have this preview button, which will pull down the most recent record of what you have. So let's say I've been working on this and I realize that I've made a mistake. Sorry, I was trying to do that in all caps. I've made a mistake in what I'm typing, and I want to make sure that I'm getting the most recent record possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to download, and it just pulls in all the same information that's stored in the database. So this gives us a clean slate of what we have already. So if later on down the road you feel like, oh, I made this mistake and I kind of need to start over, the best way to do that is to use that preview button to just pull everything back into the template itself. So we've submitted this. This information will stay there, and we can actually start going into our first ELO. So again, whenever an ELO is started, we always have this title screen. So we're going to kind of do the same thing to make sure that we're getting this same setup. And as you can kind of notice, we have been making progress on setting up the templates to mimic how the IMI itself is actually structured. So we have the image on top. We have this little tag down here with the flag. We have the title, and then we're going to have the text as well. So if we look at the actual template, it's set up the exact same way, or laid out the exact same way, where you have an image, you have that tag, you'd have the title, and then you'd have the text that's associated with it, one for the language, one for English. So let's set this up so that way we can have a one-to-one. Okay, so we're grabbing this image. We're going to give it all the proper attribution information. The source can be DLI. The author can be, I'll just keep using me. I can spell my own name correctly. That'd be nice. And we'll just say 2018 for this one, and the description would be a man speaks with his colleagues, with his friends. Why not? So next we're going to add the actual content itself. So we're going to grab this. I've got a document that has all this again, which we'll be sending you guys to test as well. But we're going to grab that target language text that we need for here and populate that with a copy and paste. And then we're going to do the same thing for this, for English. And we are going to save that to the database. Awesome. We've got that into the system now, so we should be good to go. So I'm going to hit OK. And we're going to go on to the reading section. Okay, so let's move on to that in here as well. Okay, so for this page we have a few different elements going on here. We have an image itself that's going to sit on the left. We have the reading itself, which will be here, and then we have this eMentor content as well. So we need to enter in all of that information into here, into the tool. So the first thing we're going to do, we'll kind of just follow that same left to right pattern. We're going to go and add an image. So I have reading here. We're going to add this reading image here. Flag. Let's say flicker for the source. We will say I'm the author. The date will be October 26th of 2004, and the description itself would be the Korean flag. Wow, and I apologize for my typing. But okay, so we've added all this information. We're going to submit that. The next thing we would do is we would have to enter in all of this reading text. So we have that already kind of pulled out. Okay, so we have all this information in here. At the bottom, we have this as well. An important thing to note too, we've been kind of making progress on this as we go. We still need to kind of work out some of the stuff that is on here with this functionality up here. So just for now, we'd like to kind of just ignore this section. And as we keep working on this stuff, we're going to be releasing updates to this application, and we will be notifying everybody whenever we submit an update for a template or anything like that. So we'll be able to have a little bit more control over the actual content that's going in. But again, we're not quite at that stage yet. So we're going to keep marching here, and we're going to add in that eMentor text. Okay, so now we have that eMentor content as well. We've got our reading content, we've got our image set up, so we should be good to submit. So we're going to submit, and we have a notification that says, hey, this has been added to the database. Great. So now that we know that we've had the this properly stored, we can just keep on marching. So this, I must have forgot to remove this instance from the database. So this already has an instance in it from testing, just to make sure that everything was going to work. What we have here, clearly I'm going to have to update because this is not correct. So the way that this template works is you're going to be asked to submit a term, and then you put its English translation in. Just bear with me as I kind of populate this as I go. So we also have the option in this template itself. So you would fill out a term and you would fill out the English translation of it. But let's say I need to add some more. So down here we have an Add Field button. So this will allow us to add as many fields as we'd like for this section. So we're going to, and I think it's up to, I think you can add up to 20. 20 different terms and translations. So in-house. Okay. So now that we've got that set up, we're going to save it. Okay. So this was actually an update, but yeah, so we've stored that information into the database, and that should be good. Okay, so next we're gonna, and let me pull up so we can look at this as a one-to-one. That's the one thing we haven't done yet. Okay, so essentially this template itself is building out this page right here. So when you are adding in these terms, what in turn is going to happen is that they will be taken from the database and then added to a drop-down where the user then would have to choose to match it up. As we keep going with production on this stuff, we're going to try and get this as close to the same aesthetic as it is in here. But yeah, so we're trying our best to always have a one-to-one relationship with the design of everything, so that way it's very clear what you're going to be working on. So let's keep moving. We're going to go down to the reading section, or the next question, which is a multiple choice. So let's go to a multiple choice example. Okay, cool. So the way that these multiple choice are set up, you have a question, you have these terms here, which are going to be, or these choices here, which are really meant to either be correct or incorrect. So this last one, and then once you've entered it correct, you would see some feedback. So in the IMI, it's really structured the same way, right? We have a section where you can enter the question prompt. You would be able to enter each distractor's text into this field right here. And then you would also be able to denote over here on the right whether it is correct or incorrect. And then lastly, you would enter in that feedback for here. So this is kind of built the exact same way that it is in the IMI. So you can kind of just paginate through and go to each question. That's what this little navigation down here does. It's just helping you flip through. And we can also add or remove questions. So we can add up to 5 questions, and we can remove all the way down to 3 questions. So you always have to have 3 questions, and the system will prevent you from having less than that. And you can only add up to 5. That's just the way that we have it set up right now. And if there's a use case where we need more than 5 questions, or we only need to have 2 questions or something like that, we will have to make that adjustment. But we can do that pretty easily. So let's populate this. So we've entered our question text. We're going to enter our first distractor, and then we're going to denote this as being correct. So that is the correct choice for the question that we just put in. And then we're going to put in some distractors in here. So that would be the second one that would be there. And then we're going to denote that as being incorrect. We'll add the third one in. And we'll also denote that as being incorrect. And lastly, and we'll put that as incorrect as well. The next thing we'll add is the actual feedback that the user will receive. So when they answer this correctly, they will see this text here. So we've kind of built out a question that would be, then populated in this format. So these questions, I believe, are randomized in the IMI. So we would have to, or maybe just the lures are. Yeah, so we have right here, we have kind of a one-to-one, right? Here's the question text. Here's the question text. Here's the first distractor, and these are randomized, so they're in no particular order, but there's the correct answer right there. So let's just kind of flush through the rest of the questions here. This one will be correct. This one will also be correct. This one as incorrect, and this one is incorrect. Okay, add the third question in, distractor 1. Sorry, that one's correct. This one's incorrect, also incorrect. And lastly, we have the feedback. Okay, so I've entered in 3 questions now, which is all that is in the actual question bank at the moment. So we're going to add another question. And that just adds another slide. Just for the sake of this, I want to show you guys the when you can remove a question as well. So let's fill this with bad content. We'll just say blah no. We're just gonna blankly fill these out. Bad, not good, awful, and we'll say lame. So we can add more questions if we need, or we could also remove that question. So in order to remove a question, you just kind of go to whichever one that you would like to remove. And as you can see, we got rid of that one that I just entered in all that off content with. So you just pick which question you'd like to remove. You hit remove, it's removed. You can also add, again, if you need to kind of add more questions, you can do that. A functionality that we don't have in there right now is the ability to reorder the questions. And I think with the next iteration of this, we will be able to reorder questions as well. So let's fill out one more question and then we'll submit it. So let's go to correct. This one is also being correct. We'll save that one as incorrect, incorrect. Okay, so we have all 4 of our questions in. So let's submit it. Okay, cool. So it's telling me that the multiple choice instance or the multiple choice page that we've added has been saved to the database. Great. Okay, we don't have the mind map template available right now, so we're going to skip that one. And we're going to go down to the reading activity 4, which is going to be a constructed response. Yeah, let's take a break.
I believe the instructions are already populated. Is that correct?
Yes. So in the beginning, in that first section where I showed you where that instruction text is being pulled, so in this left navigation section, you'd be able to go to the actual language, and then you could go to the button that's right here. Let's see if we can do that right now. So if I were to go into, we're working in Hindi, but we would go to this instructions button up here. That pulls up all the instruction text. So in each example or each activity that you're working on, all the instructions will be pulled from this form right here. So there's one spot that kind of handles all the instruction text throughout all the modules in the language. So once you, then we did that on purpose so that way, let's say you do have to change some of the instruction text. We'd be able to do that relatively easily, right? We can update it in one spot and then it'll be updated across the board. So that way we don't have to like, okay, let's say we changed a mind map instruction, for example. We wouldn't have to go into each template individually and update that information. It's just a one point of failure here. Okay, so we left off on the, these are the constructed response templates. So let's jump into that. So we're back in ELO 1, question 1. We're going to kind of follow the same format. As you've kind of noticed that all these question texts are set up the exact same way. So they all kind of follow into that same format, which is consistent with the IMI itself. So let's go and take a look at right. Okay. So the one thing that is missing is this compare answer section, but that's essentially because you would type into this section, right? So there wouldn't really, the user would at least. So there wouldn't really be a need for it in the form, right? So you have the question and you have the feedback. Let me just drop that in real quick so we can look at the feedback, right? So depending on what the user, well, not depending. I mean, it's just once you've entered something in here, you can see the feedback and evaluate your response. So we have the question text that's in there. So now we just need to populate that feedback text. So we're going to grab that. The one thing that is going to change with this template is, as of right now, we've been adding in the associated reading manually, but that will be done automatically, I think, down the road. So I have the text right here from that reading that we entered in earlier, but ideally we'd want that to be kind of populated off of that template. But for the sake of development, we had to ensure that we had it at all times. So we're going to pump that back in there. Okay, so we've got that. So everything looks good. We're going to save that. Perfect. So we know that it's been added to the database. We've got that notification. So we should be good. Next, we're going to kind of kick off the listening section. So we have the ability to add a video. This is going to be very similar to the introduction that we went over at the very beginning, the first template we looked at. The only difference is that you're going to be able to add multiple videos. And by multiple, I think the limit that we've capped that out at is 2. When we were developing the courseware last go around, 2 was the maximum number that we got off the top of our head. But if you needed 2 videos in here, you could do that. But if you need 1, you could also do that. So let's just for the sake of it, let's add 2 videos. So the first thing we can do is we can add a video, just following that same procedure from before with the introduction video. You select where it says add a video, then you add it into here. You're going to this is just a sample video that I have that we're also going to send you to test with as well. But okay, so we have this. A video still follows that same procedure for adding in all the attribution information that you need. So author can be me. Just use today's date. Okay, so we're given the option again we can play or pause it as we see fit. But once you've added a video in here, you can also add another button. This kind of mimics the same structure as, I'm not sure if KPMO1 here has 2 videos in it, but we can, I wish I could have it up in real time for you. Let me see. Yeah, so this is just a solo video, but you have the option of adding a video up here with this little plus button. So we're going to hit that. So we can now add another video, and then we're given the option to later on remove that video, or we can flip back to the other one. So let's add, we can add that intro video again. We can play this video, or we can flip back to the first one, play this video. So we now have two videos in there. When you are on that first one, however, you cannot remove it because there always has to be an instance of a video. And that's kind of the way that we have it set up programmatically to prevent their, removing all the videos. So, okay, so we've got that set up. We're going to save it. And this might take a while because now we're uploading not 1, but 2 videos. And the database, sometimes it takes a little while for it to register all that. So, cool. So we've got that set up now. So now both those videos are in there. If we were to leave this page and come back, it might take a little bit, but it's pulling in those videos again that we can later on test and edit however we see fit. So you're following the same procedure both times. If you need to add a video, you just click that plus icon in the top right, which kind of denotes that you're adding one, and then you have the ability to remove that second video, or you can flip back and forth between the two to edit their content or to play it, or however you need to modify it. So that takes care of the video section, which again would be this, which kind of kicks off the listening part of the ELO. So we're going to go back. Again, this is I forgot to remove this instance from the database, but we have just a vocabulary exercise. I'm not going to go over this one again. It's the exact same that we did previously here, where we're kind of adding in and adding fields however we need, or however many we need, and comparing it term to English, or once we get there, we'll be able to do synonyms and completing a sentence and the rest of that as well. So same thing in there. That goes there. This one we have our first true false. So I apologize. I should have removed this information from the database prior to the demo. But it just pulls it in automatically for you. So that's the nice part about it. So now we have a true false. The only thing that is going to really be different from setup wise from like a multiple choice is that you have to denote what the answer is going to be. Is it going to either be true, or is it either going to be false? And then you have 2 sets of feedback. So the first feedback would be when the user answers the question correct. So if this question suggests that the answer is indeed true, then the feedback that would show up when they selected true would be the correct feedback. And if they were to select false when the answer was true, they would see this field for the incorrect feedback. So let's, I have one of these down here as well. Just give me 1 second to pull up all the information. Okay, so I was actually looking for an example of this in Korean, since we're kind of doing a one-to-one with Korean, but there were no instances of a true-false template being used in all 6 modules. So I actually had to grab my sample text, and it's going to be in Chinese. So just a slight little difference. But yeah, so we've entered in a question here. We're going to mark it as true. Our feedback is going to be very similar per answer, just for the sake of the demonstration. And it might be that you want to supply a little bit more feedback for why it's true or why it's false, but oh, I got those in the wrong order. Sorry. So first one's going to be correct, and this one's going to be incorrect. Okay, so we've entered that. Let's go back to that sample data. We'll mark this one as false. We'll say, yeah, and this test data is really just kind of from my own creation here, so, or at least the feedback portion of it is. So, okay, correct, the answer is false. Continue, incorrect, the answer is false. So that would be if the user had selected true. So you're filling out the question text, you're denoting whether the question will be marked as true or false when properly answered. Then you're going to give feedback that is relevant to whatever the choice is. So it would be if the answer is false, there would be text in here that denotes that answer was correct and why, I'm assuming. So let's do one more question, since our test bank is at 3, or it always has to be at 3. So we're going to do this. Punch in a question, mark it as true, and I'll just grab the same. So it'll be a repeat, but just for the sake of testing, let's do this. So we've got all 3 in. Looks good. So it's been added to the database. Yeah, and then the last one would be that constructed response again. So we can do another one. This template will be a little bit different. We have an associated reading with it right now, but we would then populate the video in there instead. So that way it would be a one-to-one with the listening section itself. So you would have a reading one and then a listening one. So let's just do that real quick. Or we've already kind of gone over this one. So that's kind of an ELO setup. And then lastly, we just have 2 more templates to fill out, which would be, you would go through that same process to complete each ELO. And then lastly, you have to fill out this summary information. So you would have a summary, you would have that enrichment page, which is going to be pretty standardized, I believe. Okay, so the way that these summary pages are set up is the same way as the reading was done. So let's go to this in the IMI so that we can have it in context. Okay, so we're going to have an image on the left, then we have some content in here that's in the target language. We also have it in English as well. And then, yeah, that should be pretty much it. So let's populate this real quick. So first, let's get our image. I'm supposed to be grabbing summary. There we go. Submit that. Let me get my summary text here. Okay, so we have some summary text that we can drop in. We also have the English text that we could drop in as well. So we filled out both fields. We have all the content in the target language. We have all the content in English as well. We have our image, so we can go ahead and submit. Okay, so it's been added to the database, which is great. So we're going to say okay. And then lastly, we have this enrichment page, which I'm pretty sure is going to be fairly standardized, but this is going to, again, follow that exact same process. Select your image, you add it, fill out the attribution information. Submit. And lastly, we have the enrichment content. Yeah, so we have that filled out. Form looks good. We've got our image in place. We've got our content in place. Our instructions are populating. Our bottom bar looks correct. Yep, okay, save it. Okay, so we should be good. That kind of covers all of the templates themselves. It's relatively straightforward. We're going to have a navigation that kind of pre-populates that will allow you to flip through all of the pages that are going to be in the IMI. A little bit further down the road, once you select a page that does have the option of selecting a different template, we'll add that variation in as well, so that will be updated on the fly. And you know, this will be just a good way to keep an active record of everything that you know, is going on in the IMI and during our storyboard production as well.